Good morning. Week 2, Lesson 1. The quality this week is commitment. And can I say that the purpose-driven was our first week. This is really where the rubber meets the road. This is all about what we're doing. The purpose of this entire curriculum is to make you the best you that you can be. We took the 300 greatest leaders in the world and we determined what qualities it was that made them the greatest leaders in the world. And then we developed these qualities in you. If you develop all 36 of these qualities, obviously you're going to be a better you than you were before you began. And last week we started with purpose-driven. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we start. If you've noticed, and I'm sure you have with the first week's lesson, there's no lesson over 7 or 8 minutes long. Well, that's the first part of it. Remember, we said if you listen to what I say, you will remember 2% of it. The key to it is to write answers to the questions. That's what commitment is. Being committed to this curriculum and becoming a better you is being committed to the point that you're going to write the answers to these questions. The second thing is you're going to write the goals each week. And when you write down these goals, you're going to make the commitment that I'm going to do them. I want you to think about a couple of things for just a second. Last week we talked about purpose-driven, and we've talked about the 300 greatest leaders, and these guys had these qualities developed to the nth degree. Think about George Washington, who is obviously one of those 300 greatest leaders. What do you think his purpose was? He was going to make this a free country. We were not going to be a colony of Great Britain. That was his purpose. Now let me ask you something. Do you think he was committed? Do you really believe he was committed? Well, had he not won the war, he would have been hung. So he gave his life. Think about Martin Luther King. What do you think Martin Luther King's purpose in life was? Equal rights? Sure it was. It was equal rights for the African American people that had been so mistreated for so many years. Was he committed to that? Think about it for a second. He actually gave his life for equality. Nelson Mandela, one of the 300 greatest leaders. Do you think he was committed? He stayed in a prison in South Africa until apartheid was gone. Commitment is defined by really, if you look at it, and we're on page 20, and you need the curriculum. You need the written curriculum. You can get it by going to developingcharacter.org. And you can pause for a second and go get it. But you need it. And when you say commitment, it is defined, if you want to know what you're committed to, real simple. Look at how much time you spend and how much money you spend. If you don't spend any time and you don't spend any money, you're not committed to it. That's as simple as it can be. The quote is, a willingness to comply does not mean a willingness to commit. In other words, last week you wrote down 3 goals. Purpose-driven, that was our quality last week, and so you were going to write down 3 goals. To be committed to completing those 3 goals is to write a plan for it. In other words, George Washington had a plan. He had a plan as to what we're going to do, and you can read all about everything that he did. Martin Luther King had a plan. These people didn't just set a goal. They were committed to this goal. I was talking to a young person over the weekend, and he was telling me that he was going to run a 5K. Think about that. He was going to run a 5K. So what did he do? He got him an app on his phone that said from couch to 5K. And now he's following that religiously. He does that every day. That app is giving him, he's got a commitment to run a 5K. And he's not just sitting around and saying, well, I'm going to run a 5K. He's got a plan for it. Well, when you become purpose-driven, when you're going to be a goal-oriented person, the thing you have to do is you have to have a plan. And that plan is the key. Several years ago, we went to Branson, Missouri, Mary and I. and we went to one of these shows, and at the end of the show, they got this couple up, and they had these, how many people have been married 50 years? How many people have been married 55 years? And they had a couple that had been married 67 years. Sweet looking, young, not young, but small couple, and they got them up there, and they were just grinning and just happy as they could be. And they said, what is the secret to a long marriage? And you think they're going to say, well, you got to love one another. You can't go to bed mad. You got to pray together, whatever it might be. And this lady looked at him, and he said, he won't die. And everybody laughed, and you think that's funny. And then I was talking to Mary about that. You know, that is commitment. The day she got married, she said, till death do us part. Think about that. That is a commitment. Now, 50% of the people today that get married get divorced. Or were they committed? No, they were complying, and they had an interest, and they decided marriage wasn't a bad thing. But they didn't have a commitment. And until you have that commitment, being purpose-driven is not a commitment. In other words, if I just write down a goal, and I don't care what the goal is, if I write down a goal that I want to write a book, which I did years and years ago, the second thing you've got to do is you've got to say, okay, how am I going to do this? What is my plan? And I don't care what you write down today, and you're going to write down 3 things today that you're going to get done. But the second part of that is you got to write down your commitment. And your commitment is real simple. What is the plan to get it done? Now remember, each day this week, you're going to write down on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in your curriculum, you're going to put, did you do a good job? Were you committed on Monday? Did you write down 3 goals, and did you write down a plan to go with each one of them? When I said I was going to write that book years ago, many years ago, I said, okay, at 9 o'clock every night, from 9 o'clock till midnight, I'm going to go to a room in my house, and I'm going to spend writing that book. From 9 to 12, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I'm going to spend writing that book. That way I could see my kids to bed and so forth and not infringe on family time. And every night for 8 months, I went to that room from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Matter of fact, it got to a point, after I had finished it, I still wanted to go back up there because I was in such a habit of doing that. But what you've got to do, if you're going to have a goal of writing a book, you got to have a plan for it. I don't care what your goal is. If you're going to make a bed every morning, if you're going to make an A in a class, you got to have a plan. If I'm going to make a 90 on a test this week, then what I need to do is say, okay, I'm going to study from 6 to 7 each night. I'm not going to cram the night before. Commitment doesn't mean complying. There are so many people that will say, okay, I got it. I'll write down 3 goals. I got you. And so they write down the 3 goals. Well, that's awesome because Harvard said that 50% of the accomplishing a goal is to write it down. But here's the second part. You got to have the commitment. And the commitment means you're going to make a plan and you're going to put the plan in writing. Now look at the bottom. It says, what is the difference in complying and committing for an employee? In other words, if you just go to work every day and you just put in the work, there's no advancement. You're not going to go anywhere. The person that does more than they get paid to do will eventually get paid more for what they do. If you want to move up in the world, if you want to go from being an assistant coach to a head coach, or if you want to move up as an employee, then do a great job of where you are. And if you do a great job of where you are, you'll eventually move up. That's commitment, just going to work every day. An athlete, if you go to practice every day, there's no guarantee you'll ever get better. Matter of fact, if you go to practice and have bad practice, you'll get worse. What you have to have is you've got to have a commitment that I'm going to get better at whatever it is that I need to do. Throwing the ball, catching the ball, kicking the ball, whatever it might be, and I've got to have a plan for that. And I tell you, in this information age that we live in, you cannot tell me that you can't find the information. If that young person I talked about a while ago can find an app on his phone, on his Fitbit, that says from couch to 5K, and it gives him a complete run a minute, jog a minute. I mean, walk a minute, jog a minute, walk. I mean, it starts at the very basic and goes all the way through it, and all he got to do is be committed and follow that. Well, that's true with anything today. What about being a Christian? Well, compliance means you go to church on Sunday, maybe Sunday school. That's not a commitment. Being a Christian is a commitment. How about a son or a daughter? I'm going to commit to being the best daughter I can be. That means I'm going to help with the dishes. I'm going to help with cleaning the house. I'm going to spend some time with my mom. Second question there, and I want you to think about this because this is a really interesting thing. What's the difference in commitment to a chicken and a pig as far as a breakfast? The chicken is going to lay the eggs. What's the pig going to do? The pig's going to provide the bacon. Well, if the pig's going to provide the bacon, that means it's got to give up his life. The chicken is interested in breakfast. The pig has a commitment. Last thing about commitment, and think about this. It's never what you want in life. It's what are you willing to settle for. In other words, if you sit down and you write down a goal that you want to make a 90 on an English test, I understand you want to make a 90. What is it that the least that you're willing to settle for? That's what you've got to write down. That guy that's going to run the 5K, he's got to be willing to say, I'm committed to running that 5K. I'm not running 3K and walking 2K. I'm running 5K. I'm committed to us winning a state championship. I am committed to doing this or doing that. Why is it that every employee wants a high school graduate? Because of the grades? No. It means they've committed to something. They started in school and they're going to finish. That's being committed. See you tomorrow. 12:30.